there are Americans who are fighting back against this government overreach, and you know what? They are winning. And today, I would like to highlight one such person. That man is named Pastor Ché Ahn. He has a congregation over in Pasadena, and when the state of California ordered that all churches had to close their doors, while at the same time allowing liquor shops, marijuana dispensaries, and big box retailers to stay open, well, Pastor Ché fought back. He took his case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and he ultimately won. And in that process, he secured religious freedom not only for his church, but for all churches. Here's his story. All right, so we are here in California at Harvest Rock Church, sitting down. Pastor Ché.
Thank you, Roman.
Thank you. Can you please introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I'm the pastor, senior pastor of Harvest Rock Church. We started this church in 1994 in our home. You know, we just had 2 families plus some individuals that we invited. We invited 15 actually, but 30 people showed up. And amazingly, the next week, we said we're going to have the same time service. Next week was a Saturday night, and 65 people showed up. And the third week, we stopped counting after 72 people crammed into our house in Pasadena. They were in the kitchen, the dining room, the hallway. And we realized we had to find a building. So I called my friend who was a pastor in the city next to us, is Arcadia, and asked if I could rent out Saturday night. They said, yeah, we're not using a Saturday night. We have services on Sunday. And don't you want it on Sunday? I said, no, not really, because it doesn't matter for us if we meet on Saturday or Sunday. He said, well, it's yours, just as long as you clean up afterwards, because we use it the next day. And we had 300 people show up the first public service, and so we realized that God was really blessing our church. We give him all the praise, all the glory for it. And then in 2004, we purchased this auditorium, the Ambassador Auditorium, and again, we give God glory for that, because it was a miracle for us to buy this. But we're glad we did, because not only do we use it for our church service, but we're able to serve the city, and we've opened it up for concerts. And believe it or not, Pavarotti, right before he passed away, hit his last solo tenor concert right here in this auditorium. But we've had major artists. Yo-Yo Ma comes here every year, so we are really honored to open this place up for different symphonies. One of the things that I was really, really proud of that we did by the grace of God, when COVID hit in 2020, I felt like the Lord say, raise money, $150,000 just to give to businesses in Pasadena that were hurting because of the lockdown. And our people gave, and sure enough, we hit the $150,000 goal, and we were actually running out of places to give. So I went to City Hall and with the city council and the mayor, and we found out that they had a fund also that they were giving out to people that were hurting during the COVID. And so we said, hey, you know, we're just going to give you a lump sum. Could you distribute this for us and just let it come from you? It doesn't matter. We don't have to get the credit. And so that was really, really fun. And so we have this incredible synergy with our city until we sued Governor Newsom, and all of a sudden we became public enemy #1. And we sued Governor Newsom July of 2020 because we felt that he was violating the Constitution by locking down in-person worship. And we got it for a short period, it's one thing, you know, but to lock it down, and to give you an idea how egregious it was, 49 states had opened up in some form of worship in person, whether it was even like 10% or 100 people, but he locked down everything. No percentage, no number, nothing. And we couldn't meet in our church, we couldn't meet in homes. It was just a total lockdown. And it wasn't for our lawsuit, I know we would have been locked down for weeks or months after the winning of the lawsuit. So we felt like this is wrong, because he was declaring, for example, a strip club in San Diego to be essential. That was open. Abortion clinics are open. Marijuana dispensaries are open. And yet the church, which is so needed during this time, was closed and locked down. And it just didn't make any sense. And so we felt discrimination. We sued, and by God's grace, it went all the way to the Supreme Court in February the 5th or 6th. They granted us a real decisive decision that set a precedence, not only for the churches in California, but for the rest of the United States, that no governor can lock down a church for in-person worship, even through a pandemic. So we are really grateful for that.
Within that story, there's something I want to unpack, which I feel there's a certain essence of the problem that many people don't talk about, which is that the strip club wasn't locked down. The abortion clinic, the drink, the Walmarts, the alcohol stores, right? They weren't locked down, but the churches were. So it almost seems to me like, you said that there's no sense to it, but I don't believe that things are done senselessly. I believe that there's just a kind of a thinking behind it that maybe other people don't agree with. And so it seems to me like this kind of secular idea that the spiritual realm either doesn't exist, or that it's not important, or that it's, people should just be able to just do it at home by themselves and, and be locked down. I feel like that's the train of thought that led that decision making. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. You want to believe the best. You want to believe that Governor Newsom doesn't have that kind of bias. But throughout church history, for example, my father was born in Pyongyang, what is now the capital of North Korea. And it wasn't always communist. It was right after World War II where Truman and Stalin divided up the world, East Germany, West Germany. He wanted Korea to be totally communist, but Truman said absolutely not. So they divided Korea. North Korea would be communist, and South Korea would be a democratic republic. And but he put in Kim Il-sung, the grandfather of the now present dictator, Kim Jong-un. In 1950, he decided to invade South Korea to unite all of Korea under communism. The first thing he did was arrest the pastors. And my dad was arrested. Why? Because throughout history, Christians, pastors have been the voice for freedom and democracy. We saw that with Stalin in 1937, one of the most grievous slaughtering of over 100,000 pastors took place that year. I'm not sure if I got the exact year. It was 37, 38, one of those years. No one talks about it, but we have to realize that communism has killed, when I talk about communism, I'm talking about Mao, I'm talking about Stalin, Kim Il-sung of North Korea, Pol Pot of Kampuchea. They have killed, they estimate, 150 million. So here we are now in California, and I'm seeing that spirit of socialism, Marxism, communism come in. And they know that religion is their number one enemy. And they know that pastors will speak out. As Dr. King Jr. said, the pastors and churches not over the state, but they're not under the state. They're to be the prophetic conscience of the state. They're to be the voice to the state. And they know that my dad was arrested because he would speak out against communism and totalitarianism. So they arrested all the pastors to kill them. And thank God that Truman sent General Douglas MacArthur, and they invaded, they went into South Korea, but pushed the North Korean forces to the Chinese border. Now, what happened was the Chinese jumped in, but before that happened, they released all the prisoners, and millions, not just my dad, but millions migrated to South Korea because they hated communism. For the few years that they were under communism, they hated it. And thank God that my mom and dad met in South Korea, and they weren't even married. I wasn't even born, but they married at a church in Seoul, Korea, and then you had me. And so I wouldn't be here if the U.S. forces did not come and push back communism to the North Korean border.